Hello, this is Dr. David Billstrom, living the autoimmune lifestyle on the edge of an ancient volcano. So I hope you've liked the last two videos that we talked about coronavirus. We're going to do a third one today. We're talking about how we can prevent getting viral infections, or infections of all kinds, how you can keep from transmitting a viral infection to somebody else, and if you're going to get a viral infection, how to keep the symptoms as mild as possible. Now we got some wind going here. I'm in a little bit of a gully and trying to stay out of the wind as best I can, but hopefully stay out of it enough that we can do the video without too much wind sound effects. I always liked the wind myself. I find it incredibly soothing, especially when you're outside like this. Now, our healthcare system, we tend to be very reactionary. We don't prevent very well. Now, as you've heard me say many times, medical knowledge is doubling every 73 days in 2020. We know so much more now than we did 73 days ago, more than we did a year or two ago, but we tend to have developed a medical system that's very reactionary. We'll wait till something bad happens, and then we'll go ahead and try to do something about it, usually kind of putting a bandage on it. And so, as I've spoken to many times before, it is not hard to prevent disease. It's very hard to wait for it to get established and then deal with it, as we're trying to deal with COVID-19 right now. So for example, I've used vitamin D multiple times. So a little bit of vitamin D every day the first year of life will prevent almost 90% of type 1 diabetes, autoimmune diabetes requiring insulin-dependent diabetes in young people. A mother having a vitamin D level above 53 at the time of birth will decrease the chance of the child getting, cut the chance in half of the child ever getting multiple sclerosis in their lifetime. By just doing that, we prevent 100 new cases of multiple sclerosis every day in the United States. Thus, about 3,500 MS diagnoses would be prevented every year. If every woman's vitamin D is high enough, you can prevent almost 90% of all breast cancer. And we just don't do a lot of that prevention stuff. So, do we know how to prevent people from getting infections, like viral infections, even bad ones? Of course we do. Do we know how to keep people from being able to transmit the infection once they get to somebody else? Of course we do. Do we know how to keep infections mild if they do hit us? Try to keep the symptoms as mild as possible? Yes, of course we do. Now, that's just not quite how medicine works currently, though. Thus, the people that get COVID-19, a lot of people are getting it, have no symptoms at all. A lot of people aren't getting it, hopefully. A lot of people that get it, their symptoms are mild. There's other people, young people, very young people, older people that get terrible COVID-19 symptoms and are dying every day. Unfortunately, there's no medicines really to treat the COVID-19 currently. We're very reactionary. Now, when the people get in the hospital, what are they offered when they are sick with COVID-19, for example? Well, if there's medications available, they're offered medications. So in hospitals, there's formularies. These are the medicines that are on the formulary that we're allowed to use within the hospital setting. Because COVID-19 is kind of new, there are no medicines. Do we know how to take care of things without medicine? Of course we do. There's lots of data, tons of data. One thing that's not on formularies in hospitals are anything that is non-pharmaceutical, anything that is not a medication. So it takes a long time to develop a medication for COVID-19. By the time they develop a medication, an antiviral, COVID-19 will probably move on to COVID-20, 21, 22, and it'll be old news, possibly. Are vaccines the answer? Of course not. They're not the answer for influenza. There's ever so many strains. The strains keep changing every year. The influenza vaccine, they guess on which ones might be active that year. They usually guess there's going to be 3 different kinds. Well, we're going to try to have 3 different kinds within the flu vaccine. And if it's a different one than those 3, nobody gets protected. Kind of at best, it might be they guess right 1 out of 3 times. Plenty of people, thus, that get the flu vaccine still get the flu every year. So on our first coronavirus viral infection specific video, we talked about viral infection protection and how do plants keep themselves from getting viral infections. Thus, I hope you found it very insightful about the Biocedin, the plant-based supplement extracts along with vitamin D and vitamin C. Hope you enjoyed that, and I hope everybody's taking advantage of that and has passed the word on. The second one was silver nanoparticles. How silver not only keeps people from getting infections, and we talked about this in light of HIV, which is a terribly problematic virus. More people are going to die of that probably ever than COVID-19 by a long shot, and so it's even worse than COVID-19. So here's silver nanoparticles that prevent people from getting the virus, keep it from getting into our body, keep it from getting into our cells if it is in the body, keeps people from being able to transmit it to other people, and it helps make the infection, it can actually kill the virus in so many different ways, many more ways than any medications we have. Thus, we talked about how in the study specifically that was addressed, they said it is highly, highly unlikely that bad viral infections such as HIV will ever become resistant to silver nanoparticles, because it works on so many different levels that there's no way the virus could make that many changes and ever become resistant to silver, even though, as you all know, infections very quickly become resistant to antibiotics, antivirals, antifungals, even all the medicines that HIV patients have to take, the antiretroviral medications. So here today, we're going to talk about a study that was published in 2012 in the Annals of Family Practice. And what this looked at is things like meditation and exercise, and can that actually help prevent viral illnesses. So they followed a large group all through the winter, all the way till May. And what they did is they took a group and they taught them how to meditate. I refer you back to the great Harvard study I always talk about as far as meditation and epigenetics. So they taught part of the group how to meditate, they taught the other part of the group how to exercise, and the other part of the group, they didn't teach them anything. They just said, just go about your own business. And so what they saw was, in both the meditation group and the exercise group, they were able to prevent about 50% of the viral illnesses over that winter, all the way through May. And if people got the viral infection, upper respiratory infection specifically, which is what COVID-19 is an upper respiratory infection, and these, we're specifically looking at upper respiratory infection prevention. And if the people did get the infection, they had 50% less bad symptoms. Now, with my daughter winging her way back from University of Wisconsin as we speak, the scale they use, I got to mention this, it's the worst scale, the Wisconsin Upper Respiratory Severity Survey, is the way they measure severity of upper respiratory infections. Go Wisconsin, go Badgers. And the symptoms were worse. So here we got COVID-19. You don't want to get it. We know how to keep people from getting viral infections. If you get it, you don't want to be a bad case. We know how to keep viral infections mild and don't get bad cases. And as I mentioned in the previous videos, these interventions also will help keep you from giving it to other people to try to stem this pandemic going on. Now, of course, you know nature does the same thing. We talked many times about how nature optimizes immune system function and keeps people from getting infections. Thus, if you're a person working in a high-rise office building in the city and are looking down the green roof, you're less likely, you have a better immune system and you won't get infections. You put trees in the back of a classroom and children, they don't get sick as often and miss school. They also don't get sent to the principal as often because their behavior is better. You have a green view from your recovery room after a gallbladder extraction surgery, cholecystectomy. You're less likely to get infections post-operatively, and you can go home sooner. Saves the hospital a lot of money. So we already know about nature. So here I am out on the rim of an extinct volcano, a little north of Ashton, Idaho, and it's called the Caldera Rim. And this is the rim of an ancient volcano when all the volcanic action was in Idaho. Now it's up closer to Montana and Yellowstone, so we're not too far from Yellowstone right now. So here I am exercising, basically meditative exercise. It's beautiful out here and in nature, and hopefully doing wonderful things for my immune system. I'm also, obviously, social distancing, right? Keeping away from other people. Left my home, didn't get out of my car, and here I am in the middle of nowhere. Now, I'm not exactly sure why California this morning, I saw on the ticker, is thinking about locking and blocking parking lots for hiking and the beach. I think science really needs to take the lead. Unfortunately, science is not considered a great deal when it comes to big global issues like this. Thus, we're kind of in a mess we're in currently, but also you want people to get out, social distancing, of course, but here's nature. Here is something that we know from multiple studies helps people from getting the infections, keeping their immune system strong. You want them to be out. You want people to be in nature if they can access it. And it's going to be less likely to get the infections. Social distancing, all this kind of stuff, you got to do all that. But keep in mind, nature, meditation, exercise, along with what we talked about the last two videos, plant-based stuff and nano silver particles, wonderful way to try to keep yourself from getting the infection. And if you do, you're going to be less likely to get a bad infection. But also, this is information that you should keep in mind for next year when the flu is an issue again. You want to keep away cold viruses, all this kind of stuff. Well, once again, have a lovely day. We'll talk soon. Bye now.